Hello. Welcome to another episode of Season 16 of The Horrific Podcast. We're two friends who live in different places but share a love for scary movies. In each episode, we both watch the same movie on our own and then record a conversation together about what we liked, what we hated, if we were scared, and maybe even some larger truths about why people watch horror movies in the first place. This season, the theme is B movies for C students. We're taking a break from the current trends toward elevated horror and examining the history of horror B movies and how they've developed over time. Thanks for joining us, and we hope you enjoy the episode. On this week's episode of Night Owls, we're talking about the movie Late Night with the Devil. And we've been doing our journey through the B horror movies of different decades, and the 2020s is the most recent decade, so it's the one that we're going to end in. And it was a little bittersweet starting it off, but I'm not going to lie, I was really excited to have an excuse to watch this movie because I'd had several people recommend it to me in real life. And I didn't get to see it in the theaters, even though I had every intention of doing so, because very large portions of this year so far have been an absolute nightmare.
Yeah.
But I'm just happy that we got to watch it, and it just so happened that like it was available for streaming by the time we were doing movies from the 2020s. So it kind of worked out that now I got to watch it for the first time and then talk to you about it immediately after, which is, on par with watching it in the theater.
Yeah, first off, I'm just impressed that you have friends outside of work that talk movies with you.
Oh, these weren't friends.
Oh, okay. Because I actually...
overheard conversations. Let's be real.
Okay. I'll have people like every once in a while. I'll accidentally let people in real life know that I have a podcast, or if I feel awkward because I'm like, yeah, I talk to Dana weekly. Like, well, we do a podcast. And they're like, "What's it on?" It's like, "Oh, you don't care." But if they even get a hint, they're just like telling you movies that they want you to watch, and you're just like, "No, that's not how this shit goes."
Yeah, my giveaway is like somebody will talk about scary movies and then I'll immediately just have way too much knowledge on the topic, and then it gets awkward because it's just like, oops, dial that back. And
then you hear their opinions and you're like, you're so fucking wrong on your opinion on that film. Under Skin is the worst film.
Yeah, they're all like the equivalent of Esquire's list of scariest movies that are just the really movies they saw when they were under 15. But
yeah, it really is. Or they're like, hey, have you seen The Blair Witch? And you're like, yeah, back in fucking 90s.
Yeah, old news, dude.
Yeah. Anyways, that makes us sound like we don't like getting recommendations listening. Shit. We're fucking terrible at this, Daniel.
No, we like recommendations from people who are in on it. Like
That's
people who are in this world, anybody who would listen to something like this in their free time are the type of people we absolutely want to get recommendations from. And that's why we do this.
And not to walk back, but to be just 100% clear, this is from coworkers that just want to talk. They don't have shit to say. They just talk. And
the alternative is them going to their desk and doing their job. So, of course, they're going to stand around and talk to you about horror movies for as long as possible.
Like, I don't want to listen to shit. Anyways, I am glad that you picked this one, though. Yet again, Daniel, your streak this season.
I feel like I have been very dialed in. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's been fun. Like, this has been the most fun I've had in a season for a long time.
Yeah. I didn't know much about this film at all. And I am thoroughly happy that you picked it.
Yeah, and we were just talking about how you and I talking, not while we were recording, but we were just talking about how, like with Wolverine and Deadpool, neither of us really wanted to see it because it hit that point where it had been advertised to us too much.
Yeah.
And I feel like with this movie, it's another example where it was an independent film that made a big splash at a film festival and then got a distribution deal after the fact. And it seems like when that happens, then you have this lower budget movie that gets a lot of like advertising around it, but also not like the mass advertising. Like there were no Late Night with the Devil branded toothpaste or anything, but I feel like I saw just enough about it that I was aware of it, and it made me excited about it. And I think that type of advertising can really take one of these lower budget B horror movies and make it so that the odds of making money on it are a lot higher.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a good point. Like maybe that's like some of the differences that we see nowadays versus like the difference between B movie and non is the advertisement getting it, pushed down your throat. I mean, obviously you have more A-list actors and all that with mainstream, but still, I mean, advertising can definitely burn you out. And there's definitely like, we talked about this where the older films, they would hand out bags when going into the theater. Like there are different ways.
The more creative, kind of word of mouth type advertising.
That's what we're here for. And
yeah. And something that I thought was interesting about this one too is that Shudder bought the distribution rights. And I think we definitely need to talk about the streaming services as part of this larger story of B movies, because they're not just distributing them. I mean, in some cases, they're like actually making them.
Yeah.
And I think that we're still not like fully like far enough away to appreciate how much streaming services have changed the game this decade. Like Netflix and Amazon are making their own movies at this point, like very high budget movies and TV series, and they're making horror stuff. And they're also funding not super high budget horror stuff from interesting directors. Like we've had a number of things that have been funded just by these streaming services that are now part of like this larger B movie story. And I don't really know like the context around it. Like how do you pitch your idea or get a contract from like Netflix or Amazon Prime or Max or whoever else?
Yeah.
But I feel like that's going to be one of the things to look at, moving forward, is the next chapter of this story of how B movies have changed and evolved over time is going to include how people are getting their movies onto streaming services and then finding ways to get people talking about them.
Yeah, I think I don't know. It's kind of difficult for me to talk about because we just canceled Netflix and Amazon for the record. Yeah. They can't. No. Commercials. No. Get out of here. Netflix, it's gone up too high. But I think that the streaming, I don't know. It's interesting to talk about streaming if the streaming company is or has a different mindset than like the big movie studios. And I don't know if they necessarily do or not. I think that Netflix is just up there with like, MGM, Paramount, whatever. I also wonder how long before like there's just gonna be one streaming service that just starts buying the others, claiming it's not a monopoly, but it really is. That's probably coming up too. But I think the fact that you can open up, it definitely opens up more. There are more avenues for films to be made now than ever before. I remember when we first started streaming Netflix, like when Netflix first started like streaming, one of the movies I watched on it was definitely like a home movie made horror movie. Yeah. It made no sense. It was like literally filmed like on like, it looked like a tape recorder. I don't know why or how like it was there. I can't even remember the name at this point. This was like, years and years ago, but, that they were pumped because they got their stuff on Netflix. This was before Netflix was actual Netflix, like what we have nowadays. But I think it's going to open the door. But if we get quality film, if we can continue getting films like this, then I'm all for these streaming services, doing their thing. I'm not for the fact that I now pay double what I initially started paying for this shit. It's not worth it.
Yeah. Well, and I think that it definitely, I would say the having lots of streaming services like we do right now means that they're all desperate for more content, which I think makes them a little more likely to make these smaller investments in movies that they think have the quality that B movies have always had, where it's going to generate controversy or people, like word of mouth, or appeal like very strongly to a very small like sliver of viewers, because it's not that big of an investment. But if they can keep like engaging those audiences, then that's going to overall help their, retention numbers and everything else.
Yeah. Yeah. I could see that. That actually makes a lot of sense.
So yeah, I think it's interesting, and we should go back for next week and figure out like some of the ones that have actually been funded by the streaming services. But I think about movies like Creep. That was, I don't think they were funded by Netflix, but I know Netflix did the distribution. Like that's where I saw it. That's the only reason I found out about it. And I think Hush was one that I saw just while like browsing Netflix as well. And so they really kind of like as almost like a low budget distributor are an avenue for getting this work in front of people that's a little bit different than a lot of the other ways that people have done it in the past. So there's definitely something there to pay attention to. And I think it'll become more obvious probably as time goes on, exactly the overall impact that it had. But I just thought it was interesting, with this one, because I don't even think of Shudder as like a, major player. But the fact that they bought this movie for distribution or bought the distribution rights means that they are kind of getting into more of that world. And that's cool to see.
Yeah, and I think that it's actually kind of interesting if you think about it, just coming from the technology side of things, like distribution before, like if these are only going to be streamed, like before distribution included like marketing, included like theaters, things like that.
Yeah.
What do we have with like streaming services is like basically data centers? Like is that the space on their server or something that I mean I'm sure there's a lot more obviously involved. But I can't see it being nearly as expensive as it used to be to even put out just B movies. I just can't see that be the case. It's
so. The digital distribution compared to like making physical VHSs, like totally different game.
Yeah, it's like data centers are expensive, but they're it's just everyone has, it's just a thing now, it's just storage.
And these companies have already made the investment in all that. So
100%. Yeah.
But anyway, so exciting stuff to pay attention to, but I think we know why the people are here.
Me.
Well, yeah, I was going to say Jack Delroy, but
oh shit! No, I feel bad. I'm sorry.
So lots to cover with this one. I enjoyed the movie, and I'm excited to talk to you more about it because we have not at all compared notes so far.
Not one time.
And so I'm going to do a quick introduction, and then we will get into the AI stuff. Was in like 3 scenes just for a minute. It's really not that big of a deal. Get the hell over it. Details.
Yeah, I didn't think it was bad at all. Get over it now.
In 2023, Late Night with the Devil made its debut at the South by Southwest Film Festival in Austin, Texas. This film was written, directed, and edited by brothers Colin and Cameron Cairns, and it tells the story of a widowed, fading talk show host who invites a parapsychologist and a possessed girl on for a live Halloween special. Things escalate quickly. According to Wikipedia, this movie made $12.7 billion at the box office. I was a little suspect, and according to more reputable sites, it made more like $15.4 million at the global box office. It can currently be rented for streaming on Amazon Prime Video and is also probably available on Shudder because they bought the distribution rights.
And this is where this is where I come into play. Here's what you do.
All right.
I wasn't about to pay $3.99 for an SD rental, so I just started a free trial at Shudder.
Nice.
You watch it for freezies. I already canceled my subscription.
So here's the thing. Turns out my wife had signed up for a trial account of AMC Plus or IFC Plus or something on Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
And so I got to watch the movie for free, asterisk, for the cost of however many months she's had that active without realizing
it. Hey, I still take that as a win for the pod, man. We both technically, well, if you just don't look at your bank account, it's free.
Yeah. I mean, from like a podcast expense point of view, we're still running hot. I love it.
This is why no company wants to work with us. We'll find workarounds that you don't have to spend money.
Yeah.
Fuck that.
We don't need your ad dollars because we don't need dollars.
Yeah.
Can't control us. Don't worship your economic system. This movie was interesting to me because the whole thing was shot to look very retro. It was kind of grainy, and it was like a period piece in the 70s. And the whole like build up in the story that they added in the beginning to give some context to this like almost found footage style of like an episode of a live late night show, I thought was a cool way of setting the scene without getting in the way and then getting down to business.
Yeah, it is exactly what B movies are. It's a simplified set. Now, the set itself didn't look cheap or anything. Like, it looked like a real like late night set, but man,
but that was like the whole movie, like in that one location. Yeah.
And they did things to. This is the evolution of. Well, I mean, this isn't new, but this is the evolution of B movies. Like, what can you do when you're on the same set the whole time? Well, when the camera's cut for commercial break, go black and white. Like it's a different feel, and you're kind of backstage kind of thing, and it just kind of makes sense. The other thing to add to this is I've been watching a lot of reruns of Late Night with Johnny Carson.
Oh, really?
Lately. Yeah, because I don't know, I'm stupid, but I'm telling you right now, if there were a late night show that come out with the 70s set like this, like if we could get like David, who played Jack, to actually put a late night show out like in the 70s theme, I'd be in heaven. I'd watch that every single day.
Yeah. When they were showing all the like the montage of like the way the show had changed over the years and the guests he'd had and stuff in the beginning, I was like, I would 1,000% watch this show.
Yeah, without a doubt. But I think that I think going to black and white was incredibly useful and smart in this situation because it does add a little bit more depth to it. I mean, I was really impressed with the set itself. Like it had to have been like I don't know. I don't want to say it had to be like a late night set already. Like it could have just been the stage that they set this up on, but it was very cool.
Yeah, it was like everything about it was very believable. Like there was nothing distracting to take you out of like kind of the period piece nature. And I feel like they also definitely were going in on making references to pop culture things from the 70s.
Yeah.
Which was great, because it's just like, yeah, that's exactly what a late show would be doing. It was talking about current events and everything. And so, they referenced Vincent Price as kind of a kooky, horror type character. Yeah. So he was like, by this point, a little past his prime, and talked about Ed and Lorraine Warren and Burt Reynolds and Jimmy Carter and stuff. And it felt like traveling back in time a little bit, where he's just making all these references that feel very current, I guess. Yeah. Even though like we know that it's history for us.
Well, yeah, I mean, two things. Even though it wasn't like based on it, they didn't pull based on a true story. Like, it definitely feels like you're watching a rerun. Like you could be watching something that played back in the day, maybe. And then also the banter between the host and between Jack and the I don't know what you call him, like his sidekick,
like his sidekick guy,
just that banter. Because like I was saying, I've been watching. I'll show you my YouTube history. I've been watching Johnny Carson reruns on there, and that's real, man. Like just because there were times where you're like, that's over the top, but then like Ed McMahon like would do it too, and it's just like, holy cow, like they really hit the nail on the head with some of this banter that they're doing back and forth. Just professional.
Yeah, just like very believable. And it felt like very much like the people who made this were a fan of 70s late night television, And so they knew their stuff, and they pulled it off in a way where there wasn't anything about it that was distracting. It wasn't like you had a character who was supposed to be deaf all of a sudden able to hear someone on the other side of the phone. So yeah, and one thing I liked about this one is that I feel like we've watched a lot of slasher type horror, and this one was very much not that. This one was kind of more the spooky, paranormal, possession type horror, and I feel like that's hard to pull off, but there wasn't anything in this one that really took me out of the moment with it. Like, I feel like they did a really good job of just building that sense of dread and anxiety, and then the payoff was great. Even though, like, it didn't feel like it was really doing anything new with the idea of a possessed person, other than kind of the way she looked at the very end.
Mm-hmm.
But, like the vomit and the face changing and looking creepy, and like the deep voice when the demon was talking and the lifting off the ground. Like, we've seen all that stuff 100 times before, but the way that it was woven into the story and the way that the acting, I mean, like, I thought the acting was really good in this one, and the script and everything just supported it so well that you really got pulled into the moment of it. And I thought it was a great movie.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like, yeah, you're absolutely right with, the haunting, like the possession and all that. But, in some of the movies we watch, there's always like a skeptic that tends to get killed off early in these style of films. And in this case, like, it was almost like, well, like, this had to have been in reference to the great Randini, I think was his name, the guy who offers $1 million to anyone who can like prove to him that being psychic is real or whatever. But there was just like that tension that was like slowly building, because you had this kind of loudmouth guy who was trying to like prove that everything that was happening was fake. And like, it was just kind of building up, but he wasn't leaving. He was there for it. He was staying on the stage and like, chiming in when these dark and serious conversations are happening. And, it makes sense why he's that way. Like, I would be that way myself right now. Like, I don't think that that's the case. I don't think that you're possessed, but it was just that constant tension that was building throughout this film that just like, oh man, like they're about to be a fight or something. Like, this is crazy.
Absolutely. And I think that also, like, how adamantly he was and just completely writing it off and not believing it at all for so much of the movie. Then at the end, when he did start to get worried, or like he was having trouble coming up with the explanation, then it's like, oh my gosh, the most rational guy in the room is believing this now. Like, that whole just like general state of anxiety of like, there are no rules, like this isn't going to get better, really starts to hit you at that point.
Right.
And I think it was more effective just because he had established his character as being such a non-believer that even if he was being convinced, then it must be something real, and that just kind of signals to you as the viewer that you have to take it more seriously too.
Yeah. So I mean, with this, like, it is not your stereotypical possession film. I do think that you're right. There's definitely like same tropes, deep voice, all that. I think that like when the girl of, I don't remember her name, Lily, when Lily was possessed, like, dude, I swear she looked like Linda from The Exorcist in a couple of the scenes, and you're just like, holy cow, like, did they do that? They had to have done it on purpose. Well, maybe they didn't, like, you're just kind of going through your head, but it was like, and because I've seen The Exorcist, and it is a damn good film, like, I think I had The Exorcist feelings kind of coming back while watching this too. And so it's like they were almost doing things just without doing it of sorts, by just making her look similar to, Linda from The Exorcist.
Yeah, which I guess also kind of plays into the time too,
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. Without doubt. And the other thing that this does, which we don't have to get into right away, but like it definitely did the possession thing great, but it also added the twist to it that I absolutely did not see coming.
Are you talking about Gus's hypnotized state?
No, didn't all this happen because Jack offered his wife?
Oh, you're talking about the kind of the plot twist.
Oh yeah. The plot twist.
Yeah. No, I thought
I did not see that coming. So
yeah, the story on this, I was kind of curious how they were going to tie it together, because it was like it was interesting because you had sort of what was the main part of the movie, which was the replay of this episode that was apparently shown on live TV on Halloween in the 70s. But there was the setup piece that kind of gave you this broad like history of the character, and they tipped their hand just a little bit by talking about that club, that men's club that he was part of, and how there were rumors about it and everything. And then there were the references in the movie where Lily was saying things like, "Oh, good to see you again, Jack." And you're like, "Oh, the demon has some familiarity with him." Mm-hmm. And then she talks about something about like meeting him among the tall trees. And that was where, you know, that men's club had their lodge or whatever and stuff. So there were just these little breadcrumbs along the way. See, it's like, where is this going?
I thought those were references between him and, you know, when I watched this, I thought it was references between him and his wife who was possessing.
Oh, you thought the wife was the one doing the possessing. Like she might call him, you know, good to see you again, Jack, or something. I don't know. Like, I think that was my mindset. But I like the whole cult thing. Gotcha. Yeah, and so I was going to say the thing that I like about it is that they didn't over-explain it. Yeah. Like, it was there enough that you kind of had that like sense of danger or mystery associated with it, but not really. They didn't over-explain it to the point that you're just like, well, that's kind of a dumb explanation,
right?
As tends to happen in a lot of movies that are trying to tie up loose ends too much.
Yeah, 100%.
And so this one, I mean, just from a script perspective, I thought put in detail where it needed to be, but didn't try to over-explain it in a way that was distracting and made everything else make less sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was creepy, man.
It was. It really was.
It definitely feels like, I don't know, like it's weird because it almost had like this sense of familiarity to it because it's a late night, you know, show. And I feel like all of us at least have seen one late night show and, you know, in our lives, you know, and it just seemed legit, and, you know, and they're doing it with a smaller budget, you know. I mean, earlier you said that the brothers wrote, directed, and edited the film, right? It blows my mind. I mean, like, this is top tier stuff, and the fact that this is where we got to with B movies from where we started is just crazy. It's nuts to think about. That's cool. The fact that we're at a time in life where we can do that, and it's through a streaming service, technically distributed through a streaming service, and yeah, it's nuts.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of like the combination of talent and technology, because you remember a time where we went from like 2000 to 2010 and just how much better sounding of an album you could make.
Oh yeah.
For like a fraction of the budget, you know?
Oh yeah.
Because there were times, you know, in the 90s, just to get like a decent sounding recording was a pretty decent investment of time and money. And then by the time you get to the early 2010s, it's just like, yeah, I mean, everybody's got GarageBand or some other thing locally with a hardware device that you can just plug straight into your laptop and then use plugins to make it all sound big and thick and good. And it's just like, man, people with talent now really don't need a lot of external help to make something that's really awesome. The market has kind of changed where it's like the people made the awesome thing, then the people with money realized that and signed the distribution deal and started advertising it so that they could, you know, make some return on it. And it's just interesting because I feel like every step of the way with B movies, the economics of it have changed a little bit. And then people have found ways within that new paradigm to be successful. And that's one of the things that just makes this season so interesting to me.
Yeah. And without a doubt. And then, you know, you get these gems and, you know, just on point. I think another thing I really liked about this film was Jack seemed happy in relationship. Then you could tell he was sad, or he appeared sad. But then, like, towards the end of it, like, he's like smoking a cigarette and like getting like real kind of jerky, like no, we need to, like, his whole personality kind of changed, almost like he was possessed of sorts. And it was just, I don't know, there was character dynamic, but maybe it was obvious to others, but for me, it was just like, that was just cool how he like was able, like, I'm not an actor, but like, I just felt like David pulled that off extremely well. Like he just went through all the emotions in that film. But
yeah, no, I think that the acting was definitely a strength of this movie, and that's one reason it worked so well.
Yeah. I don't think the CGI was bad, man.
No, not at all.
No, I think that but they were smart about it because it made it look like an old TV. So like, I thought that was actually pretty decent. I also like how they like review footage while they're, like while watching, and to try to prove that it was fake and this and that. But
yeah, play it back.
Oh man, yeah.
It was cool. I think that this was a really, really. I would recommend this movie to fans of horror movies.
Yeah.
And I would not necessarily say that about everything we've watched this season.
No.
Like, I don't think you have to be a fan of B horror movies to like this. I think if you just like if you just like horror movies in general, this is one that you should put on the list.
Yes, sir. I'm right there with you. But if there's a sequel to it, I'm going to lose my goddamn mind.
Oh, same. Yeah. Did
you ever watch The Joker?
No.
I didn't either.
There was two of that, right?
Joaquin Phoenix.
I watched the first one, I think.
Wasn't they on, like, didn't they have like a 70s set on that film?
It was kind of retro. I don't remember the details of it. It's been a while. Yeah.
Well, anyway, I thought I watched a clip with it, but I could have been. This one took the cake. Yeah. Well done. It was a good period piece. It was a good horror movie. It was a good B movie. It just checks all the boxes for me. Oh, hey, here's something crazy too. If you scroll to the very bottom of Wikipedia, it says, see also Ghostwatch, a 1992 British mockumentary horror television film.
Oh, I totally meant to bring that up. Yeah. This, I think this one definitely was influenced 100%. By Ghostwatch.
100%.
But I like that it didn't do the same. Like, it wasn't trying to fool you into thinking it was real, but it created a convincing world in which you could believe it was real in that world.
100%. Yeah. The dots just connected, Daniel.
Nice.
If you guys can see me right now, there's trigonometry.
That's exactly the
hologram
meme I was
thinking of. But hey, man, seriously, this is a great pick. And you know what? You win this season. Every season we compete. You haven't won one yet.
Over. Actually, that's probably not inaccurate, but
well,
you've still got one more chance. We've got one more movie to review this season, and you get to pick it.
All right, I'm going to pick it. It's going to be Urban Cowboy. Sissy, get back here. Get back in the car. I got a thumb. I got a middle finger. I can get home. You won't get married? That's basically Urban Cowboy.
And that's it for today's episode. If you've listened this far, then thank you, and we hope you've enjoyed it. We're always looking for new ideas, so if you have any questions, comments, or movie suggestions, please send us an email at thehorrificpod@gmail.com or hit us up on the IG. That's what the kids call Instagram. Just search for The Horrific Podcast. Thanks for listening.